don't know about that, y'all. Looked like a big old messed up bunch of nothing to me. But what did y'all see? Well, hello, my spooky friends. Yeah, that was supposed to be, I guess, a skinwalker or something. Let me tell you the problem with that video. First of all, I mean it could have been like that was a weird sound. I've never heard a skinwalker sound like that in any videos that I have heard. It's kind of sketchy when you see something in the woods like that and it's way back there and it could, yeah, it looked weird, it looked funny, but it also could have been somebody in one of them solid suits. So I'm just saying this, if you can't prove to me it is something that I ain't seen before, then I'm gonna call you out and say, nah, it's a hoax. Now I just want to know why all of these videos are so far away and sketchy. If you got something on video, why does it have to be so dang blurry? Then again, who's going to sit around and film a Wendigo? Not me. But anyway, we're going to be watching some spooky TikToks. I know some of you have said that you missed the stories, the bedtime stories, so I may do some of those. If Sachi will let me, maybe we'll do that this week. If you're new to this channel, this is Sachi, my co-host, who is just giving me a time. She's in a mood this week. This is also my co-host Scully, and Lizzie Borden likes to hang out with me too. So let's look at some more scary TikToks.
Y'all want to hear about these ghost kids that just tried to pass themselves off as children when I had my kids outside for recess and just tried to have them line up and come inside the school? Okay, so I'm not a teacher. I'm a volunteer. I volunteer at my daughter's school. I pretty much help her teacher with whatever she needs. I'm just a concerned parent. So fast forward, the teacher counted out 14 kids for me to take outside for recess. I'm like, okay, cool. We get outside for the recess. I'm watching all 14 of the kids. I'm looking at them, watching them. Off to the right, there are the first graders, okay? And their teachers are over there watching them. And then on the jungle gym are the third graders. Now, mind you, like I said, we only had 14 kids that I took outside for recess. So I'm watching them. And where they're running, it's like nothing but open field, grass and trees. Now, it's not so many trees where you can't see the kids, right? They're only like, there's a big tree over here, there's a big tree off to the right, and then there's one single big tree that's straight ahead. Now, that one single big tree, I saw the kids over there running, and I was like, what they doing way down there? So I started yelling. I said, hey, get down here where I can, get to you, where I can see you. They weren't listening to me. So fast forward, I go down there. I start walking towards the tree. And then as I'm walking towards the tree that's in the far distance, the kids started running towards me. I guess they didn't want me coming down there. So I walked down there anyway, just to make sure ain't no other kids hiding. So I walked down there, looked behind the tree, nobody's down there. So I started walking back. And by that time, it was time for the kids to start lining up anyway. Recess was over. So I'm like, okay, let's line up. All the kids started lining up. And I'm like, you know what, let me count. So I started counting the kids. Now remember, I had 14 kids when I came out there. And all of a sudden, the number is at 19. I said 19. So I was like, I had 14 kids when I came out here. All of a sudden, we had 19. So then I started looking at faces. Because I've been with them 3 weeks now. Like, I've been volunteering for 3 weeks. I know what their face look like now. So I started looking at faces. And I see the last 5 kids do not look familiar to me at all. I'm like, what's your name? Little boy was like, Zachariah. I said, what's your last name? He could not tell me. I said, are you in Miss Wood's class? He said, no. I said, well, why are you on my line, baby? He's like, I just wanted to play. And then the other kids behind him just sitting there like statues, ain't said a word, didn't blink. And the other kids saw them as well. The other kids saw them. Y'all know how sensitive kids can be. And so I said, okay, baby, well, you're not in this line. Go ahead. I'm sorry, but you can't come in with us if you're not here. Find your teacher. They run off to that big tree out there in the far distance. And I, felt worried. Like I said, sometimes they look just as real as, you and I. They look just as real as me. Okay, so because they ran towards that tree again, I felt weird, and I ran down to the tree, and I told one of the teachers that's out there, like, hey, are these kids y'all's? And they weren't behind the tree. Disappeared. Weren't behind the tree. Remember what I said? There's nothing but open field and trees. They ran behind that tree, and I wasn't far behind them. They can't run that fast. Their little legs. They were at least 5 or 6. And when I say I was sprinting down there to get them, y'all, okay, I was sprinting down there. And cousin can run, okay? So get down there, and I start looking. I'm looking around. Nothing. Nothing.
Now, I think I would find that very unnerving, especially when you talk to a kid and you see them and you can't see through them and you think they're just regular little kids. And then all of a sudden you tell them to go on, they got to go in with somebody else's class and they run behind a tree and disappear. That would be very scary. My question is, um, did you try to find out who those kids were? Were there kids that disappeared, that passed away over the years? What were they dressed like? Any differently? I'd have 1,000 questions after that. I'm just telling you. I'd want to know if there were any kids that had passed away, even if they were not at school. I'd just want to see pictures of kids maybe who had been in accidents or whatever to see if I recognized any of the faces. But honestly, I would think as a ghost child, the last place I'd want to go is school. But maybe they just wanted to play with some other kids. Hmm. What do you think? But we're just getting started on the scary stories.
Something evil has to ask permission to come into your house. It sort of goes back to this old belief that nothing evil, nothing negative can enter into your life, can enter into your home unless you give it permission. See, we naturally have this protective barrier surrounding us. Some people call it guardian angels, some people call it, a protective spirit, but we are naturally protected from these sort of things. But these evil, these negative entities try and break us down and get us to open that space, to allow them to come in. And so our homes, where we live, where we love, where we share intimate moments, right? That becomes a protective space. And this evil entity cannot enter through that doorway until you give it permission. Now, this story comes out of North Carolina. There was this woman who said when she was a young girl, she grew up in a small home up in the Appalachian Mountains. And she said when they first moved into this house, she remembers at night hearing what sounded like young children out in the woods laughing and saying things and calling her to come outside. And she would see shadows moving across her window like someone was walking around out there. She just ignored it and she really had no idea what was going on. And she had heard stories, she had heard rumors from friends, that if anything evil comes to your door or invites you outside, do not listen to them, do not follow. Well, this one particular night, her parents left her in charge of watching her brothers and sisters. And she said they were running around the house playing when all of a sudden she got kind of this sick feeling in her stomach, like something was wrong. And she said her brother started screaming and started freaking out and crying. And she's like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And he says, they're coming. They're coming for us. Like, they're going to get us. They're coming. And she's like, what are you talking about? Who's coming? And he just kept saying, like, they're coming. They're coming. And all of a sudden, they hear boom, 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 like a knock at the front door. So she runs over to the window and she looks out. And she said, at the front door was this young boy, with an old timey haircut and wearing sort of like this blue jacket and blue pants with these like black boots. And she said he just looked out of place. She knew something was wrong. So she calls out to him from behind the door. Yes, like, what do you want? What do you need? And she said this boy responded, please let me in. Please let me in. And she's like, no, I'm not supposed to open the door. Mom and dad are gone. Like, I can't open the door for you. And he's like, please, it's cold. Let me in. And she said, no, you're going to have to go somewhere else. I'm not opening the door. And right as she says that, the lights in the house started to flicker. And she said she took her brothers and sisters, they ran into their mother's room, and she closed the door, and they all just started praying. And finally, their parents got home, and they felt safe again. And she said within a couple weeks, it was all over this town that there was a young kid who disappeared, and she felt like that had something to do with whoever was knocking on the door then. Do you know why something evil has to ask permission to come into your house? It sort of goes back to this old belief that nothing evil, nothing negative can enter into your life, can enter into your home unless you give it permission. See, we naturally have this protective barrier surrounding us. Some people call it guardian angels, some people call it, a protective spirit, but we are naturally protected from these sort of things. But these evil, these negative entities try and break us down and get us to open that space, to allow them to come in. And so our homes, where we live, where we love, where we share intimate moments, right? That becomes a protective space. And this evil entity cannot enter through that doorway until you give it permission.
Now, see, people laugh at me, but I am constantly telling folks that I will never put a welcome sign on my door. And they think I'm just being funny, but I'm not. You know how everybody puts these welcome, signs, and they're so cute, and it's such a southern and fun thing to do. And you got these cute little door things and doodads that say welcome, but you will never see anything in my house, especially outside my door, that says welcome. You know why? Because of vampires, and they think that I am just being silly. Well, I don't know if there's vampires, and I don't know if they have to be welcomed in, but I know a lot of things do have to be welcomed in, and I'm going to tell you something, ain't nothing welcome in my house. So that's why I don't have a welcome sign out. And maybe it's just a silly thing to some people, but I am dead serious. You are not welcome in my house if you are a bad spirit, if you carry a bad spirit. As a matter of fact, like, just don't show up at my door because I'm probably going to be in my t shirt and drawers. I don't do company very well. I mean, I have to be really prepared to entertain. So, FYI, I'm not the kind of person that you just drop in on. Because you get what you get. All right. But it does make you think, doesn't it?
So let me tell y'all about this little incident that just happened at my house. So, my 3-year-old, he's nonverbal, and he can only say like maybe 3 or 4 words. And he comes in and out the house all day long. Kid never wears shoes. He's just a little boy, little 3-year-old boy. And I can usually tell, like, wherever he's at, I can hear him getting in the shed or hearing him running on a porch. Nick's usually down in the garage if Nick is home. But 10-15 minutes goes by and I don't hear Bronx. So I holler down at Nick and I'm like, hey, do you have Bronx down there with you? Nick's like, no. And I'm like, well, I can't find him. So we look all around the house, can't find him. We're hollering for him. He's not saying anything. 2 or 3 minutes goes by. We're both getting in a panic mode. Nick hops into his truck. He drives down to the bottom of the driveway just to see if he might be at the neighbor's house, which he's never done before. And while Nick's down there, I'm still screaming for Bronx, and I finally hear him, but he's like way back in the fucking woods. And my kid has never went past, like, I don't know, where Nick quits weed eating. I don't know. He doesn't ever go into the woods. He's never done that before. But I'm hearing him screaming, so I call Nick on the phone. I'm like, hey, he's in the woods, come back home. Nick comes back home. I'm running up in the woods trying to figure out where he's at, how he got into the woods, how he got way back in there, like he's barefoot. Like, how far are you gonna go if you're barefoot? Then I remember me as a kid. Anyways. And so, me and Nick are running back into the woods, and we're getting closer to him. We can hear him, he's starting to get closer, but we still can't see him. And all of a sudden, like, it gets super quiet, and I heard a woman's voice. We hear a woman's voice, and she says, he's right here. And, like, we almost stopped dead in our tracks and look at each other. We didn't stop, but we turned around and looked at each other like, who the fuck's got our feet in the foot? Like, we don't even have any neighbors that are that close by. Like, our closest neighbor behind us is like 2 miles back in behind us. And we found Bronx. He's sitting on a log. bawling his little eyeballs out because he's either lost or afraid that he's going to be in trouble, whatever it is. But as we come off the mountain, I looked at Nick and I was like, you heard that, didn't you? And he was like, yeah. He was like, that was a woman, and she said, he's right here. I was like, I know, but there is no woman in sight. And it still has my nerves tore up. Like, who was that?
And once again, we're talking about those things in the woods that mimic something else. I'm really surprised that they found the little boy unharmed, and well, not really, because the kids are generally okay, but maybe that the kid did not remember or have any kind of experience, although maybe he did and he just doesn't remember it or didn't think it was odd. That is terrifying. Yeah. Welcome to Appalachia, y'all. All right, I hope you enjoyed those stories. I'll have some more for you next time. Remember to send in your stories. I'm going to be working on some bedtime stories because you've asked, and I'll be looking for some other ghost stories around the internet. Spooky season is almost here, and we're going to be talking about some legends and some other really spooky things for that season. And I'll give you a little heads up. I'm going to be dressing in costume for some of these things, so it's going to be interesting. All right, stay safe out there, because you never know what's lurking in the woods. But whatever you do, just stay spooky. Bye-bye.